the following video presentation aims at number 1, replacing IP addresses of a previous diagram with the ones that are displayed here, and also replacing or adding or replacing a DNS zone and creating authority for a zone cs.pack rather than lab223.pack. So when you have to do for your own exercise, let's say you build a diagram and you don't want to rebuild the diagram in a particular way, although we will explore situations where we can position switches in a different place. Let's say moving one switch on this side of the NAT router. We'll explore these kind of situations. But let's say you want to exercise replacing IP addresses and testing for connectivity and name resolution at the end. So what you do is, you always start with the NAT router, and you start with, let's say, specific steps. And the best thing is to do the subnets, let's say, number 1. Then you can do this as a number 2. And finally, you can finalize this as a number 3. Which means changing IP addresses, testing for connectivity, changing IP addresses, testing for connectivity. The moment you involve a DNS server, you can test for internal resolution, but you can work temporarily with external DNS servers, and at the end, when you fix your internal DNS servers, you can transfer the role of resolving to the internal DNS server. And by the way, going to my NAT router. First of all, let me see why this bridge does not operate. All right, I'll put it in the video. Basically, if you get an adapter and let's say you try to disable it, enable it, to reset it, and it does not work for whatever reason, it does not respond. This is my NAT router, which comes out of a save state. So what I'll do is I'll simply restart the server and see if it will become more responsive. While the server restarts, again, I can prepare in advance it with one shot, replace network settings, TCP/IP settings, this adapter, and respectively the 2 static routes that I will need. One for destination for LAN 1, LAN 2, and LAN 3. So these will be my destinations, 210, 220. All right, after cold restart the server, just verifying here, I'm getting IP addresses from the school DHCP server. And of course, I can always test for external resource. I have connectivity and resolution. Now, what I have to do, I'm not touching this one. I have to go to the internal network cards right away. (200, 254). Again, look at the diagram. That's what I have to put here. 200, 254. And the subnet mask changes to /24. I have to use CIDR notations at all times, and if it's not clear for your colleagues, then you switch to decimal representation, but you have to be using freely CIDR notation. So exercise yourself. This is /24. We're not looking at weird subnet masks, but sometimes you might have them. All right, this is done. Now, when the adapters are changed, you can go to routing and remote access, management console, and verify the change of IP addresses, mainly this one. Static routes. First destination. And an IP address that we are about to set to the other router. Again, these are the settings here. This is a diagram. Destination for routers, for static routes. Destination, so you have to be at this point here. This is your destination. And this is your gateway. So this is your gateway, and this is your destination. On LAN 1, on the LAN, this is LAN, not on the bridge. That's all. And again, this is operating system independent. That's valid for any operating system and for routers as well. This includes Cisco. And the other static routes. Again, I'm doing this in advance, so I don't have problems after that. And remember, if, let's say, you have problems with the NAM router, this is specific for Microsoft, and if you see here instead of zeros, you see dashes, you can try to restart the service. For example, you can click the router and all tasks, and you can restart it. And if it does not work, you still have dash instead of zero, instead of numbers. In the NAT statistics, you have to reconfigure. So you have to disable and configure again and recreate the static routes. That's the problem. Recreate the static routes. So from here, you just go to disable and enable or configure again. Then these numbers will appear, and then you will be able to connect. All right. Right away, going to PC1 and test the new settings. Now, because my internal DNS servers don't work, and that's essential, my internal DNS servers are not operational at this point. They have different IP addresses. What I'll do is I'll use an external DNS server, and because this is just for establishing a temporary connectivity, I can use the public one. I can use our internal DNS server, but I can use the public one. So that ends a my first stage of changing IP addresses. Moving on to the other router. LAN router. Changing IP addresses. this is done, I can still address TCP/IP settings, actually the router management console, and replace this router. And verify that the TCP/IP settings are changed, so this router is done. Moving to PC2, just for testing. And the next step is right away DNS server. Now this time I'll start pointing to the internal DNS server because this is the actual DNS server. And the moment I set up this, I'll go to the actual server. Right away properties, and this thing does not change, so I may have to refresh, go to properties, this will update, and verify that I already have connectivity reached to the servers to which I will forward. So this already works as a caching only server. It is authoritative for these zones. These zones don't exist anymore. So what I'm going to do is, at this point, I'll just delete the zone, create a new one. According to the assignment, I'll allow dynamic updates. All right, and to be more precise here, before I keep changing, start changing zones, although I can recreate the other zones as well. So just delete these ones, make it a little faster. Reverse lookup zone, primary. And very important, join the new namespace. Unfortunately, this involves restarting the server. All right, so we have a DNS server with new zones, new IP addresses. You can always check now, because this thing, now you check with NSLookup what happens, and at this point you can even test for connectivity. And we have to basically this, so I have to drop it. It does not resolve, it doesn't forward for whatever reason, so I have to verify what's going on here. What happened? You see, that's what happened. One of my servers, basically my LAN router, turned off. That's because I probably forgot to activate it, and it shuts down in every hour. So I'll turn it on. Wait a little bit. All right, my server is up, and it says Windows license is expired. So I will go to Computer, Properties. I'll go to System. And what you have to do is you have to click here. Exactly. You must activate today, and then choose the first option, Activate Windows Online Now. If you have a connectivity and resolution, you need both. For the virtual machine to contact a Microsoft activation server, and we'll give you the validation. All right, now this, now that this one is on, this should improve. And sometimes you just have to reset the network adapter, and then the connection will go through. Also, what you have to observe is the server self-registration. The pointer is here, which means that launching a NSLookup will give us the exact name of the server, authoritative for the domain of new domain of cs.pac. And of course, we have to do this with PC1, but I'll move right away to Sherman. Well, I'll move to the next router, LAN 323, because typically that's what you have to do. First, set up the routers. And that's it. This router is done, so going to server 2. So the server connects, and before I recreate the zones, because these are secondary zones, I will go back. I can do it at the same time, but after that it's a little bit more difficult to, it takes a little bit more time to replicate. So what I remember is that when I create the new zones, I didn't set up for replication. So you go to each zone, properties, you verify the default settings, allow zone transfers to only to the service list in the name service tab. So we go to the tab, and what we're missing here is the server to which this one will replicate. So I'm going to add the server, and this will be, as a matter of fact, it won't be defined. So what I'm going to do is, even to make it a little bit better, since I prepared server 2, I change IP addresses, forget about the DNS settings, still this server must belong to the new namespace. So I will go to computer properties, go to settings, and I will join it to the new domain. Of course, unfortunately, this goes through a restart. All right, so the server restarted, and I have the records of my secondary zone DNS server already here. I have the pointer to it. So now it's much easier to, even when I get the record, I can just copy the fully qualified domain name, go to the zone, again, zone transfers to verify, name service tab, add, and I can add the fully qualified domain name of the secondary zone DNS server. Then click resolve, and you have to disregard this. All right? Replication has not occurred yet. Apply, OK, and you have to do this for all zones. Just go to name servers, add, paste, resolve. Resolve means that you have to confirm, you have to make sure that this is the right IP address. That's all that's important at this point. No, no, just where the zones, just in the read-write zones, primary zones. This is my server 1. All right, now I can go to my secondary zone DNS server and recreate the zones. Again, typing the primary zone DNS server is the only one on the network. And the replication occurs right away, simply because it has been pre-staged. And the 3 secondary zones, reverse lookup zones. The zone replication, we'll see if it's, there should be a record here. No, there are no records here yet. This one, in this one, the replication occurred right away. And the last one. Same thing, replication occurred right away. This concludes the changing of IP address on the network. That's all. So what you do is, in the future, when I give you the project, what you have to do is simply aim at accuracy first. Slow down, do it slow but right. And it depends on you. The more repetitions you do, the faster you will achieve changing IP addresses.